How many have you had to drink?
I haven't had any.
Blessings, blessings, blessings. Hello, friends. Hello, family. Hi. I pray that you all are well. Welcome to or welcome back to So I Came Across This Post, the podcast where we take snippets of online content and turn it into whole think pieces. I'm your host, Charlie, the self-proclaimed ambassador of shamelessly embracing and living your truth. What is up, family? How are you doing? What's the tea? What's been going on? What's the energy been like? Let me know. So, this week has been pretty interesting. I started the week off, my energy was feeling a little but it got lighter. And I am practicing just being with what is. And it's an ongoing practice, and I had to choose to decide to be with the energy how it was, and it was dense energy. I didn't know why, I didn't understand why, and I was just like very confused. Nonetheless, as always, this too shall pass, and indeed the energy passed, and we're feeling light, we're feeling love filled, we're feeling abundant, we're feeling excited, and I'm so grateful for the journey. So what have y'all been up to? How's life treating you? How you're doing? What's the tea? If you're up to it, let me know in the comments. I'll respond back. Don't even worry about it. But yes, so I am very grateful to be here. I want to give a thank you to everyone who is tuning in, who has tuned in, who has given me feedback. I appreciate you all so much. I love you all so much. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you for showing up. As a reminder, we cite our sources of inspiration. So all links relating to the content I will be talking about today or anything other outside sources that I will mention today will be available on our website, so I came across this post.com. It is under the heading episodes, and you can find it at episode 7. All the details will be there. So always remember, if you got questions and you're curious about what is she talking about, where did she get this from, feel free to go over to the website, so I came across this post.com, and just know that our show notes will have all the details. You're welcome. So this week's episode is inspired by a video I watched on YouTube. It was a video of BodyCam footage that basically was showing the aftermath of a deadly drunken crash that killed a 16-year-old boy in Texas back in June of 2021. The driver, 22-year-old Jesus Cruz, was said to have drove drunkenly into a family's apartment. So when he drove into this apartment, it ended up resulting in the death of a 16-year-old boy, as well as bodily injury to the 12-year-old who was also in the room. This happened back in June of 2021. It happened in Texas, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning when this went down. So I can't imagine what it was like for that family to have to deal with this tragic incident. So according to an article I read, Jesus Cruz was charged with intoxication manslaughter. It's also known as DWI with death, and intoxication assault, also known as DWI with serious bodily injury. He pleaded guilty, and in May of 2023, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison on the intoxication manslaughter charge, and then 5 years for intoxication assault. The second charge, the 5 years, is running concurrently with the 15-year sentence. So basically, he got 15 years or less. Just saying. So as I was watching the video and just like taking it all in, here's the thing. I watch a lot of these videos, and so when it comes to sentencing, sometimes I'm just like whatever about it, right? Like, because I feel like, how much time is really enough ever? You know, like, who can really decide that it's enough time or it's too much time? Like, how can you decide that? And so, but for whatever reason, I went into the comments of this video and I just saw what everyone had to say. And for whatever reason, right, like I was shocked. I was taken aback at some of the comments regarding sentencing, right? Regarding sentencing. And then I was also curious as to why I was initially shocked. Like, why are you shocked about this, right? Like, you watch these videos all the time, you read about the sentencing and everything else, and usually you just move on. You know, you're like, you watch so many of these things, or you read so many of these things that it's a toss up about the amount of time people get, right? And so I thought it was interesting that I was shocked. Like, I was so taken aback. And so because I was so taken aback, I also was curious about what I thought was reasonable, right? Like, you're shocked about someone saying he should get life or the death penalty. So what do you think? You know, I was curious about my own thoughts, and I really started to explore them. I realized at that moment I didn't really know. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's because I watch so much of this true crime stuff and I'm used to the sentencing being what it is, that I don't even bother wondering if I think it's enough or too much. Because I mean, what would that change? What would me going through all these thoughts what would it change? What I can use that, and I can invest that energy elsewhere. And so, despite that, right, like I was still curious. I think my biggest question was if I believed in a life for life. So your actions resulted in someone's death. Therefore, you should have to give up your life, whether that's life in prison or whether that is the death penalty. Like, what were my thoughts? I was really, really curious. But before we get to my reasoning and my rationale, I want us to check out some of the clips from the video and point of views of some of the comments. I feel like the comments are really what caught my attention, and the comments are really what inspired me to start considering and wondering what my perspective is, and also to come and share it, and also would love to hear back from you all what your thoughts are. Here's a quick disclaimer. I mention this often in my videos, right? Like, I'm not in that situation, and even if I was, it can never compare to what someone else is experiencing. And so I am perceiving this on the outside looking in. I'm very aware that I can never imagine what it's like to lose a family member, let alone a child, to, or even anyone I love, to someone's choice to drink and get behind the wheel, right? Like, I can't effing imagine. Okay, so though we are only talking about one video, I broke this episode into like 3 parts. So the first one we're going to talk about is like people point of views. Then we're going to talk about the point of view from focus on sentencing. And then we're going to get into some honorary mentions, right? These are basically comments that I just wanted to share and that got me thinking. So we're going to do this in 3 parts. And so the first part we're going to do is the point of views. And this is what our fellow commenters had to say.
My nose, my face, my
friends. So it seems I forgot this one part. This video is from Law and Crimes on YouTube. Thank you, Law and Crimes. You are so appreciated. Inspired.
nose, my face, my back.
Okay.
Are you guys going to help me? Or are you just going to ask me what hurts?
We're asking, we want to know what, find out what.
Oh, fuck.
They're EMS already? Or?
Yeah.
They're getting a stretcher. Alright. So, right now we're just waiting on EMS to get here. To take you, to get you checked out.
Checked out for what?
Make sure you're okay.
It hurts, right?
Your body hurts.
It hurts, but I mean, if y'all didn't let me go, I mean, it doesn't hurt, you know?
We don't let you go.
Like, why would y'all let me here if it doesn't hurt? Or y'all just trying to let me suffer, you know?
That's why we're saying we're bringing you EMS so you can get checked out.
So why are we standing here then?
Because we're waiting for EMS.
So there's that. So let's get into these comments. So the first one is from Sam Mellett, and it says, while waiting for the EMS, when he selfishly said to the police, "Why are you trying to let me suffer? And why are we standing here then? angered me to the core. The officer told him that several people in the house got hurt. He then responds right away with a dismissive yeah. Disgusting to watch him act all inconvenienced by the police right after he negligently killed someone. The other comment that I felt like kind of went along with that was from Philip Williams. And this comment says, halfway through the video, he still hasn't asked about if anyone was hurt with him crashing into the house. I know if I were drunk and did that, I would be worried as heck about that. Then I'd worry about me. Drunk or not, the true you shows up in situations like this. This guy has no soul. Listen. I feel like there's several things here. I do agree to some extent that drunk or not, right, the true you shows up. I have a theory about that as well, where I feel like I'm always curious about it. When I used to get like super wasted, I used to always be curious about how I acted, because I feel like that really tells a lot about subconsciously what's happening in the background of my beingness, right? What's influencing how I show up. So if with specific people I get drunk and I'm not kind to them, I'm going to check that, right? And it may be that I just don't need to be around them. So I do believe that there is a lot that you can gather from someone's character or way of being when they are intoxicated. So yes, take that as you may. So a couple of things got my attention. Okay, when Sam mentions, he then responds right away with a dismissive yeah. So I don't think the yeah was dismissive. I feel like it was more so like, yeah, like he didn't know, like, or he was just like,
several people that got hurt, man, inside the house.
yeah, because in my opinion, he's not even there. Like, he's not present and accounted for at all. Like, he's not there. And I feel like you can tell a little bit by like the way he's communicating with the officers. Like, why am I going to the hospital? What do you mean why you're going to the hospital? Because you were just in an accident. And it was just like the things that he was saying just didn't line up and didn't make sense. And the fact that he even thought, like, it doesn't even seem like he's at all concerned about him being in trouble. It's so interesting. Like, it doesn't seem like he's there at all. And so, like, I feel like, yeah, as much as that might annoy you and bother you, the truth is, like, I mean, I don't know this man, so I have no idea, like, what his baseline is, right? Like, I have no idea how he is on a regular day. I have no idea what he's like when he's drunk, right? So it can very well be that he just don't give a shit about nobody. Very clear, very to the point. And that it is what it is. But I do feel like he's not even there, okay? I don't even think at the time he knew or remembered he had been in an accident. I just don't think that he remembers that he's been in an accident. And then when EMS tells him he has been involved in a major accident, he just looked so confused, so empty. Like, it didn't touch anything, right? So maybe the idea of him having no soul could be very much so, because it definitely looked like it went in and out with no kind of activation, okay? I just don't think he's there. That's just where I am with that. I don't think he's present. I don't think he's there. So, like, being annoyed with him or bothered with his ways of being, listen, who knows? Who knows? So the next comment is from Winter Lake. And Winter Lake says, it's beyond infuriating that he does know that he killed a little boy and seriously injured another little boy. And he has the audacity to act offended and acts in an arrogant tone. Are you guys going to help me? Or are you just going to ask me what hurts? As first responders are right next to him working on the disaster he just caused in the death of a child. He has no decency or shame. But here's the question, right? Does he know that he killed somebody? Like, does he know? Because I don't think he knows. Like, it seems like he really is lost and confused. And it's so interesting, too. I realize, like, he's not really asking any questions. So maybe he does know. I have no idea what is going on in this man's head. But in the video we saw, he didn't ask any questions. And at the same time, no one says to him that people are dead. I don't think they knew until they got to the hospital. But either way, I don't think no one told him again that someone was seriously injured. Like, yeah, he's like, they told him about there was an accident. And he's like, yeah. Or like other people were hurt. And he's like, yeah. But it was like a question mark. Yeah. Not like.
There's several people that got hurt, man, inside the house.
Yeah.
But he's also not like arguing why he's arrested or anything like that. So I have no idea what is in this man's head. But what I will say is that I don't think he's there. I do not think boy is blacked out. Like, he might be coming in and out, but I don't think he's there. Like, even when they tell him that he was in a major accident, he doesn't really say anything. You know, he just looks away and.
Yeah, well, we gotta go to the hospital.
Okay, go for it.
We're involved in a major accident, man.
But he doesn't ask questions, which is so interesting. I don't know. Something needs to be said about that because he definitely doesn't ask questions, and he talks about how much pain he's in, but he's not really asking like, how did I get in this pain? What happened? Who did it? Like. So maybe he remembers something. I don't know. But what I do think, I believe very strongly like that this man is gone. Okay. He is not present and accounted for. And as I mentioned, right, at the end of the day, I don't know this man. So I'm not certain, but I truly believe that he's out of it. And so as much as like these comments are frustrated and annoyed with him, like I feel like because I've been drunk and I have definitely blacked out before. And I know that I was somewhere, but I can't remember how I got from A to B to C. Like, I definitely can understand how you can be like, you could be that gone. You could be that gone. I feel like maybe that's what it is, right? I'm empathizing because I'm like, yo, I have been blacked out drunk before. And I have known I went places and I can remember bits and pieces of the night. But like, I don't know how I got home or I didn't know like. You know, my friends tell me the next day what happened. Like, I've definitely been a person who's been kicked out the club before, especially in New York. Like, so, and don't remember it. And don't remember why I was like, so I say all that to say that I truly believe that this man is blacked out. Like, he may be functioning and alert and up and may seem like he's there, but I don't think he's there. So, and with that being said, there was also someone in the comments who also was in a, like, who had the same thought process I had about, oh boy, not being president and accounted for. Y'all, I'm laughing now because, listen, what's done is already done. And like, I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at just like the choices we make in life and the situations we get ourselves into, right? Like, I'm not above it. Like I said, I too have drank to the point of blacking out. So I'm definitely not judging what he did because it's like, I ain't above it. Shit, I ain't Miss Perfect. I done some things that like I'm not so proud of. Thankfully, no one was hurt in the process. But in this case, like, shit went too far. Shit definitely went too far. And so there are consequences for that. And, you know, we learned that our actions do affect other people. Like, we are not alone in this world. Our actions affect people around us. All right, that was a tangent, but I don't know. That came up. That was in my hordes. So this next comment is from G-Ma Patty. And G-Ma Patty says, what I gather, at the time of the crash, this fool did not realize what he had done. So he acts a fool. I hope he realizes now what he has done. Please don't get behind the wheel when you've been drinking. Please, this grandma loves all of y'all. Please, please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So someone else wrote a post. It was Kelsey Dawn. And Kelsey Dawn says, even when I was blackout drunk on a cruise, which was an accident, I was told I was still telling staff I was sorry for throwing up on the floor in the bathroom and crying about how staff was going to have to clean it. This man doesn't care. How do people live just not caring about anything? As I read that, my eyes is kind of watering because, one, it is so beautiful that she cared that much about staff, right? I think that that's something that says a lot about her character and a lot about, you know, who she is as a person, right? Like I mentioned earlier, I do believe that when people are drunk, you get to see the truth of what they're made up of, right? Like, kind of like if you squeeze an orange, you're gonna get orange juice, right? Like, kind the same way, like when we're drunk, or like once that our inhibition is gone, all is free. All is free to just show up, be expressed, and there's nothing stopping it, right? There's not that ego to like slow it down. You're kind of just letting it spill out. Whatever wants to come up is coming up, and you don't have as much control over that. I also feel like the things he cares about and is focused on does tell us a lot about him, right? Like, I believe it tells me a lot about him. Or at least about his programming, like what matters to him, what he's conditioned to value, and things like that. When he is waiting to get help, you hear one of the things he values more than anything, and that's his coins, okay? That is his coins. Let's listen in.
Take a seat. Take a seat. You're gonna fall.
I'm also bad, bro. I don't know what the fuck to do. If I sit down, your guys are gonna chip on me.
Why don't you sit down? Yeah, they're here.
You walk that way?
What are they gonna do to me?
I'll take you to the hospital. You walk that way?
So they're just gonna charge me for the hospital?
Yeah, we gotta go to the hospital.
Wait,
We're involved in a major accident, man.
This was better. The partner number 2 is the apartment that was served by the vehicle. Apartment number 2.
That's right here, but let's see right here. I have to. Yeah, so you go to the hospital. Just check out. What if I don't want to go to the hospital? You don't want to go to the hospital? You sure? You said everything was hurting. Nothing hurts. Nothing hurts. 2 minutes ago, you were saying that everything hurt and you were going to get help. And nothing hurts, bro. Nothing at all.
You're telling me everything hurts. They want to, just so they can go ahead and check you out. Make sure
You're
everything's
charging me like $5K, bro. Fuck that shit. I'm not broke, bro. I'm trying to work my life, you know.
I understand,
I
but
don't have money to fucking spend on fucking ambulances and shit.
so you don't care about your well-being?
Fuck no.
I want to make sure you're okay.
You guys getting paid, bro. You guys getting paid to
This
make
is-
sure we are okay.
No. We're here to make sure you're okay. We're not getting paid to make sure you're okay. We're here to make
How
sure
long,
you're
though?
okay.
How long?
I'm not too sure that the EMS is going to take you. They want to take you to the hospital to get you checked out. Make sure you're okay. You don't know. You never know. You might have something internal.
Fuck it then.
You said your foot hurts, your face hurts, your nose hurts.
It's alright.
And you have blood on your nose also.
It's just a bloody nose. I gotta clean up real quick.
So how long ago were you coming home? Were you going home? Like, what was the time you were going home? You know? You don't know? You don't remember?
What's gonna happen? You're at the hospital?
I don't remember.
Huh?
No.
Oh, go to the hospital? You remember? You're gonna go to the hospital with them or go to the hospital with us?
What if I don't want to go to the hospital?
You're gonna go with us to the hospital.
Are you guys gonna cover like my hospital
No,
shit?
we're not gonna cover it.
So what if I don't want to go?
You're still gonna have to go, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what's the point of the law if like you guys are gonna take me against my will, you know?
I'm not taking you against the rule.
So if I don't want to go, what are you guys gonna do? Arrest me?
Yes, you'll be placed under arrest.
Against my will?
No, for DWI. Driving while intoxicated.
Against my will?
No, you'll be placed under arrest for driving while intoxicated.
Alright, so if I don't do that against my will, what are you guys gonna do then?
No, I'm telling you, you're being placed under arrest for driving while intoxicated.
As it is right now, you're
So
under arrest for
regardless-
driving while intoxicated. Okay?
Alright.
So you're gonna want to go to the hospital in the ambulance?
You guys are gonna take me regardless, right?
Yes, you're still gonna go to the hospital.
Yeah, take him to the hospital.
If I'm asking you, want from the ambulance, you
Yeah,
want
take him to the hospital.
I'm asking you, want from the
Take him
ambulance.
to the hospital. Yeah.
Take them.
Yeah, you don't want to go in the ambulance? You're under
They're gonna
arrest.
charge me the same shit, right?
You're under arrest as it is already. So the only option we're giving you is whether you go to the hospital in the ambulance or you go in the hospital with us.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna, regardless, like, shit, right? They're gonna regardless for that.
You're under arrest. So you're going to go to the hospital?
Yeah, no, I'll go to the ambulance and hospital because they're gonna regardless get shit. Yeah, I'm just
All right, just wait for the.
Any assistance?
Any assistance over here?
I'm just telling you guys I'm being cool. Come on.
I'm trying to get you help. That's my main concern. You know what I mean? You still should get checked out because clearly you're involved in a major accident. Right now, you might not feel it because your adrenaline is real high. You know what I mean?
I mean, but if I feel it in 2 months or if I feel it now, what is you guys' concern?
It means that you're placed under arrest. The driving while intoxicated. I'm placing you under arrest.
That's me under arrest.
So I need to get you first medical attention. That's my main concern. You're involved in a major accident.
Listen. I'm not mad at Jesus for worrying about the cost of the ambulance. Like, isn't it like hella monies for them to drive you to the hospital? And then you got to pay for the hospital bill, depending on what kind of insurance he got. We ain't getting into all that, but I feel him. Listen, my man might be drunk, but what he is doing is asking important questions. Okay? These are important questions. Now, under the circumstances, go to the hospital. You have no idea what the hell is going on with you. You were in an accident. There could be internal things going on. Who knows? So, yes, it's great to get checked out. But he just didn't care. He was asking, like, it's about his coins. Like, and he was straight up about it. And so I respect that. But I will say, like, the fact that that's what he cared about does say a lot to me. Like, it's like, oh, okay. Priorities. I get it. I get the importance. And he even said it. They asked him, do he care about his well-being? And he said, fuck no. No. He said no. And yeah, I definitely looked up his sign after that. He's a Saggy, which definitely it resonates for my experience with masculine Saggy sons. Just saying. And it's a December one, so just saying. Yeah, he was focused on his money, his time. Am I arrested? You're arrested regardless, whether you go in this ambulance to the hospital or whether you go in a police car to the hospital. You still arrested. Anything else? Like, yeah, yeah, you're arrested. But he doesn't ask why though. And they did ask him at some point how much he had to drink. He said he didn't drink. This whole video is so interesting because I'm so curious as to what was going on in his head. And does he remember anything? Because in his waking life, he might just be about like getting around stuff. And therefore, the skill is just there. Okay? So, drunk, sober, the skill is there. So, who knows? Who knows? I think about the whole thing. Like, it doesn't seem like he knew that he was under arrest. He doesn't seem to be able to put together, he didn't seem to be able to put together the fact that the police officer was asking him about drinking, that there's an accident, they're telling him he's under arrest, there's helicopters around him, ambulance, noise like crazy. But he also didn't ask what happened. And I feel like that to me is like so interesting. But it also relates to his awareness. Like, so do you already have the answer to these questions or do you just not care? Because you don't feel like you have anything that is none of your business. Because the Saggies I know is very much about that life. Like, I ain't worried about that. That ain't my problem. Like, you could be telling them, like, you in trouble, da-da-da. They're like, nah, it's not true. Not my problem. And it's like, even when it's in their face. So it could simply be that like he was just, it ain't none of his business type energy. Like he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. So he ain't asking no questions because he don't care. I don't know. I don't know. And I did not watch the case. I did not watch the court case. I have not watched any videos about him. So I have no idea what his energy is like to confirm or verify or to support my feelings one way or another. But I know old boy does not seem to be present and accounted for. That's what I do believe. Okay, so let's get into the comments about sentencing, because those comments are really the ones that caught my attention. And so, like I mentioned, in the comments were some point of views about sentencing that caught my attention, that caught me off guard at first, and eventually I was just like, what do I think about any of this? And as I was reading them, I realized that I truly didn't know where I stood. So usually when I hear about cases, or I hear about sentencing, or I hear about, or I get into a conversation relating to, do I think this is fair? Do I think this is harsh? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I tend to really focus on the purpose of our correctional system. And then I loosely apply that to, so how does that purpose relate to this situation? I'm a very big believer in policy. I'm a very big believer in, like, consequences having purpose, right? Like, or like rules and regulations having a purpose, right? Like, if you have a rule that, no drinking and driving, and the purpose of that is so that people won't get harmed by drinking and driving on the road, right? Like, in its implementation, it's really important that, like, it connects to it deals with the issue of people drinking and driving and people getting hurt, right? And so I understand why the law exists. I think it's a very important law, and I think that, at the end of the day, we are social animals, right? We are a social society, and so we can't just be walking around here doing whatever we want, because what we do impacts other people. It affects other people, right? You putting your hands on other people, you violating other people in other ways, you stealing from people, you robbing people, like, all of that affects other people. And if there's not rules and regulations in place, then people won't really feel safe. And if there are not people around to enforce those rules and regulations, then they're really pointless. And so I understand the purpose of the justice system, and at the same time, I think it's super important that when rules and regulations are made, that they are effective. They are effective in their implementation. So that is a big part of, like, what I care about when I am thinking about whether or not sentencing is, like, too harsh or good enough or blah, blah, blah. I will discuss a little bit more about, like, my thoughts on that. But generally, like, that's just how I feel about it. It's like, if there's a law, if there's a regulation, then I want to know what the purpose is, right? If people are going to jail and part of the correctional system is people being incarcerated, what is the purpose of that, right? And if that is the only purpose, is to punish? Or will we keep in mind the other purposes of our criminal justice system as a whole, and then specifically our correctional system? So even before I went to law school, even before I knew that dream of my young child dream of being a lawyer was going to really come to pass, I have always been intrigued by the criminal justice system. I've always been intrigued by the correctional system. I remember in undergrad, I remember talking about the correctional system, and I was talking about, like, the purpose of it. And I remember one of the big purposes was rehabilitation. And for whatever reason, rehabilitation is so important to me. It is so important to me. And now, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, girl, that makes so much sense, because I am a person who do believe that you are not what you do. I do believe in forgiveness. I do believe in grace. I do believe in second chances and chances and chances and chances. And I believe these things probably clearly because I have felt like life has continued to be kind to me, right? Life has given me chances to learn and to make mistakes and to fall short, and the punishments have not been too harsh or too unbearable. And therefore, I pray for that for all of us, that we can live and learn, and we won't be given up on. We will not be given up on. And granted, right, everybody is not going to be able to be rehabilitated. There's so much that goes into that. But generally speaking, I do think that human beings are good and loving and kind people, and therefore I do believe that there is chance for change and shifts and embodiment of different energies throughout our life. And so with that, I do believe in rehabilitation, and I think that is so important. And at the same time, I feel like we don't talk about it enough. Like when I read these comments, they all felt very punishment focused. But I'll talk more about this later. Let's get into these comments. Let's go. Let's explore. So Rai Sonic 9 says, drunk drivers get so coddled in this country. It's sickening. Dudes should get automatic life in prison. Tommy's 5189 said, he only got 20 years for killing another person. That is so wrong. A life for a life. He should be in jail the rest of his life. Boiler B Scott says, 20 years is too lenient. He deserved life or death penalty. I'll tell y'all, when I saw somebody, I was like, whoa, death penalty. So the next comment, Miss Cope says, 20 effing years? Are you kidding me? That's all that person is worth? Disgusting. I effing hate drunk drivers and the courts that give them a slap on the wrist for murder. Listen, so I just want to say this to those who keep talking about these 20 years. He actually got 15 for killing another person. The other 5 was for the 12-year-old that was injured. So just throwing that out there, and let's be clear that he's serving that 5 with the 15 concurrently. So let's just put that in perspective. So he did not get 20 years for killing someone, or his actions being the reason that someone is now dead. Just saying. So Gillian Haynes 7120 says, if you kill someone when you have been drink driving, you should get life. They get in their vehicles knowing that they are drunk and choose to drive a weapon. So Sandy Cara 5754 says, this country is too lenient on DUI/OWI offenders. He willingly drank all that alcohol, which in my opinion should be manslaughter, life without parole. He can't keep his lies straight, and total lack of remorse is disgusting. My condolences to that poor family at the loss of one child and injured other one. So I want to address the last 2 comments together. This is definitely a tragic situation, no doubt about that. And I can't imagine how anybody closely connected to this incident feels, right? There are levels of the pain and the trauma that comes as a result of an incident like this. My comments and feedback is just that, right? Like my perspective from the outside looking in. And because I know this is a sensitive topic, my intentions are not to discount anyone's feelings. It's never going to be that. And at the same time, I just want to consider a bigger view for a second. So first I want to address the remorse comment. Here's the thing about the lack of remorse factor. He really just seems to be out of it.
Take you to the hospital. You walk that way?
So they're just going to charge me for the hospital?
Yeah, well, we gotta go to the hospital. We're involved in a major accident, man.
So if we're talking about he doesn't seem remorseful at the scene, my love, I know it is frustrating. I too feel like this was preventable, this was avoidable, and it did not have to happen. Okay, so this was a choice that was made, and because of someone's choices, because someone was, I guess, self-focused, really, because there's no way you're thinking about other people if you decide to get on the road while drunk, right? And we could talk about the fact that many human beings, we tend to believe that it won't be us. It won't be us. And I feel like that is a part of the issue. We keep believing that it can't be us, it won't be us. And then when it's us, it's like, oh, but it was just a mistake. Oh, well, I didn't mean to. But you knew that that was a potential consequence of that choice you're making. that choice you're making. We're saving our own lives. I don't know why, but that's what came up. Okay, back to this. So yeah, so when it comes to the whole remorse factor, I personally just don't even think he was there. So I didn't get that from the scene. I don't know what happened inside court. Like I mentioned, I did not watch any videos about the court case, so I have no idea what he was like inside court. But at the scene, I don't know if you can even talk about remorse because it does. No one actually says to him that, "Hey, you were driving a car. Hey, do you see where your car is?" Right? Like I didn't see any video of that. I didn't see any video of. So I'm not saying it didn't happen because I'm just saying I did not see any video where someone tells him about what happened. Someone tells him that his driving caused someone to be injured or his driving did this. And then he was just like, he didn't care, right? I didn't see any of that. And again, I think even if it was to happen, he really seems out of it. So I can't imagine he would have too many emotions about anything relating to that outside of him being in pain. Who knows? On the other hand, when I did rewatch the video to prepare for this episode, I will say this about his energy, right? And it goes back to like what I was saying earlier about my faves, Saggy Sun's masculine energy, because they can very much be like, I don't care. And very much be like self-focused. And so like, as I watched this video, I was like, yo, you know what? He probably shit, but I'm gonna call it tart. He probably tart in everyday life. And what I mean by that, like, he may be a very like nonchalant type energy or like a nonchalant and focus only on what matters to him type energy, which makes sense too because he's only 22. 22, like I know that a lot of us believe like 18 is old enough. 22 is really not that old or mature. It depends, right? Not just your nature, but your nurture. Like it depends on a couple of things. But like he does give off energy like he is about self and whatever he cares about, whatever he values is his focus. Because even as he's talking to the officers about, well, if you're gonna let me go, then I don't want to go to the hospital. Well, you're not going. All right, well, then I want to go to the hospital. You know, like, it's very much about, like, what he wants to do and how he can get what he wants out of the deal. So I wouldn't be shocked if, like, in everyday life, he's just a nonchalant, it's all about me. If it doesn't affect me or affect what I want, then I don't give a shit, right? Like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to get what I want type energy. Like, I ain't worried about nobody else. I can definitely see that, right? And I'm stretching. I'm stretching here, y'all, because I don't know this man. But what I will say is that when I watched it the second time, I did feel like, all right, he might be a little tart in life. He might be a little tart. Tart has his purpose too. Hello. At the end of the day, I don't feel like he is fully there. So there's that. And I can only imagine like that when he woke up, when reality hit, that it hit. I can only imagine that when he woke up in a cell, I can't imagine what the fuck he was thinking. If he woke up in a cell or if he woke up at the hospital with the bracelets on. Like what I'm so curious about, like what went on in his head. How was he reacting? How was he responding? Was he confused? Did he remember how he got there? Like, I'm so curious. Y'all, and if I go and do some research after this and I find out some details, I will at least do like a quick video to give you a recap, all right, if I see it, but I haven't seen it yet, so, but I might just look it up. Anywho, now, when it comes to the choices that was made, right, because that is what they both talked about, right? Gillian said, if you kill someone when you have been drunk driving, you should get life. You get in your vehicles knowing that you are drunk and you choose to drive a weapon. And Sandy says he willingly drank all that alcohol, which in my opinion should be manslaughter. Right? So it's all about like the choices that he made. And so, I mean, let's think about this for a minute. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, voluntary intoxication is not a defense in law. So you can't get drunk, do something and be like, oh, I was drunk. The law does not consider that. Okay. And keep in mind, right? Like clearly they may consider in your sentencing whether or not you have an addiction to alcohol, and so like may require that you go to a program. However, as far as like you voluntary drinking and then getting in an accident, that is not a defense like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing, or oh, I was drunk. Not a defense, babe. I will say this, as far as we know, Jesus did voluntarily drink. He decided to drink, and after drinking got in his car and attempted to drive somewhere, wherever that somewhere was, right? He said he was heading home, but he also said he was coming from home. I think what happened is the last thing he remembered was him coming from home. You know how like sometimes you don't remember the middle part, but you remember like the last place you was, and probably the last place he was home, and then now he's there, and so he's like missing some hours in between. I don't know, just possibilities. So as I said, like he did decide to drink. After drinking, decided to get in his car and drive, right? And so we are all aware of the potential consequences of drinking and driving, okay? And so he opened himself up to such possibilities. He's opened himself up to the possibility of getting in an accident the minute he got behind the wheel of that car. Or even if he knew he was going out for drinks and decided to drive, I would say it started there. The moment that you knew you were drinking and you didn't come up with a plan, whether that plan was, I'm only going to have one drink. I'm not saying that one drink is okay or acceptable. There's no judgment about that here. I'm just saying the moment that you knew you were going out to drink is the moment that you should have came up with a plan, right? Whether that plan is, oh, I'm only going to drink one drink, whether that plan is, I'm not going to drive, I'm going to ask my friend to drive me, or whether that plan is, okay, I'm going to stay once I start drinking, I'm going to stay there, I'm going to stay the night there, and then I'm going to go home in the morning. Whatever the plan is, or I'm going to ride home with someone else and pick up my car in the morning. Whatever the plan was, like that, you had something set in place, because the minute you know that you are going to drink, like, that's it. You made a choice. You made the choice. And so, at the end of the day, it was a chain of choices that led there, right? And I think that so often I say this, how quick one decision can change your life. And that decision to get behind the wheel of that car changed everything for him. Changed everything for him. It changed everything for that family. It changed everything for that neighborhood. Because these boys, these kids were in their bed, in their home, their safe place, and a fucking car came through their apartment and caused so much damage. So now everybody's life is affected. Everybody's life is now changed. Everybody's worlds are different now because of a choice that Jesus made. And so part of me is just like, truly, what would be enough time? Is any time enough time? Would life in prison, what would be enough time? So as I thought about this topic, right, of what would be enough time, and as I thought about the comments that was there, I wondered, like, what would be enough time, right? Part of me wonders if maybe having a minimum amount of time that you will automatically get for a DUI, a death with DUI. So, like, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, automatically, regardless. If someone dies at the hand of you voluntarily drinking and driving, then that's it. Like, you got a minimum amount of time. And then taking into other factors will determine if you get more time than that or what goes with that time. So how this might look is, if you plead guilty or are found guilty of death by DWI, there is a minimum time you must serve and programs to attend, right? Like the rehabilitation part, because y'all know how I feel about that. And then depending on your circumstances, your previous history of obeying the law, your previous issues with law enforcement, right, your history in school, your history with work, like really looking at the whole person and the environments you are in and all that, right? Like taking into account all this stuff, right? Additional time can be added considering the risk you may have of reoffending. Now, granted, I know that something like this is already in a courtroom. We've seen it a couple of times where people get to make statements at sentencing to ask the court to give them the to give the defendant the max amount of time, or asking the court to be lenient, or asking the court for the least restrictive kind of punishment. And they all tend to, right, cite things like family, support, community, all these things. And so I feel like, yes, this is already in place. I feel like that should always be the case. And specifically, I think in DWI situations, it should definitely be the case. And I feel like when it comes to DWI specifically, because like the reality of a DWI is it's the same situation, right? Like you are intoxicated, you decided to get behind the wheel, now someone is dead as a result of that. Some causal link of this death. And so because I feel like it's so reoccurring, it's the same, it's very similar facts all the time. Like there can be a minimum amount of time that people need to do, right? Like period. See, because like I mentioned earlier, one thing I always think about when it comes to crime and sentencing is like, what is the purpose of the correctional system, and does this sentencing support that? And when I'm thinking about DWIs, right, part of me is like, it was an accident, right? And I know that people may not like that idea of me seeing it as an accident, because as I said myself, right, like you made a choice. And I guess the part of me that sees it as an accident is because I do believe that people don't think it can be them. People really don't think it can be them. I have heard people literally say, I drive better when I'm drunk. You know, like, I just think that, so the intention to harm is not there, right? However, it is reckless for you to go out. It is definitely negligent. It's reckless for you to go out and voluntarily drink and then go and get in your car and be on the road with everybody else. So that's why I too feel like it's so rough, right? Like, because I personally would need to know the circumstances. Like, that's just me. Like, I'm not a person, like, I'm not so hardcore on punishment, or I'm not so hardcore on what the consequences should be. I'm very much a person like, but what are the circumstances? What are the circumstances of that individual? What is the environment like, right? What is influencing them? Why are they, why did this happen? How often are they drinking? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I will have so many questions. About the situation. And and as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, you want people to be objective, but it's like, how can it not be subjective when part of the purpose of the correctional system is rehabilitation? How can it not be subjective in a way? I said earlier, like, I really do believe that, like, every time I hear, or even in the comments, I felt like everybody was very much focused on punishment. They did not really talk about rehabilitation, and it's layered, right? Like, I will always acknowledge that it's layered. It's not a simple answer. There is years of history regarding the criminal justice system. There's years of history regarding the correctional system. But at the end of the day, just like humanity and just like our experiences here on earth, everything changes, right? Everything changes with time. And I also believe that, the criminal justice system can go through some changes. It too needs to go through some evolutions. Now, it's been a while since I've done research on the criminal justice system, or even the law, criminal law. It's been a while since I really have delved into it and seen what's going on, what's up, what have the reforming the criminal justice system look like lately. So I am acknowledging that, right? And at the same time, I am saying that I do believe that I'm not just focused on punishment. And so as I was reading those comments, that's the reason why I probably was so shocked, because I don't just focus on the punishment, because I feel like there's more to it. Like, first of all, this young man is only 22. When I think about 22-year-old Charlie, when I think about 20-year-old Charlie, when I think about 26-year-old Charlie, huh? Clearly, I thought I knew everything. Clearly, I thought I was grown. But honey, being at this age that I am now, I was a child. And I had a lot of learning and growing and unlearning to do. A lot of healing and releasing and remembering of self to do. I was living in survival mode. And I don't know this young man's life. I don't know his situation. I don't know his circumstances. So I'm definitely not saying that, making up excuses for his choices. But at the end of the day, all of us make choices with the fact in mind of the life we desire to live, or the life we're living. There's a reason why he got to that place where he was drinking like that. There's a reason why he got in that car even after drinking. there's a reason why all of that happened. And I'm not saying we must consider it or we have to excuse it. No, I just say I think we need to acknowledge it. Because yes, maybe the consequence for him is 15 years in jail. Okay. Sometimes people need a pause. You know, I do believe that some people feel like they go to jail and jail saved their life. I've heard it before. I believe it's possible. And the reason why I believe it's possible is because I do believe that sometimes the consequences of our actions are exactly what we need to pause, for us to realize the path we're going down is not the path we want to live. And the path we're going down is not one we want to continue. The path we're going down is not conducive to how much we value freedom. Like, this is about to be a cackle, but being in the military let me know how much I cared about my freedom. Being in the military let me know how much I cared about having autonomy. Being in the military helped me see how important it was for me to have control over self. It showed me that, right? And getting arrested at 19, 18, however old I was, helped me realize that that life I was leading, that nonchalant, that thinking I knew everything, that fighting, was not a life I wanted to live. I didn't like the consequences, and it just wasn't a life for me. I wanted more. I wanted joy. I wanted happiness. I wanted all these amazing things. And if I was continuing to go down that path that I was going down, it wasn't going to lead me to anywhere good. And so I think about the times I've gotten a hit on the hand, a slap on the wrist, and gotten consequences for the choices I made, consequences that I did not enjoy for the choices I made. But those were the very things that helped me realize the life I wanted to live, the choices I needed to make to create that life that I desired. So as much as it was an oh shit moment, it was exactly what I believe I needed to be where I am today, to be who I am today. And so I say that to say, I think that's why I don't have an issue with whatever the consequences are for people's actions, because I don't think anything is wasted. I think that everything happens for a reason. Nothing is ever wasted. So even the idea of people going to prison for a certain amount of years, like, clearly it's not me. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, everything happens for a reason. I get that. But at the same time, I do believe that, you know, there's a reason why that happened, and it's a part of their bigger picture, and it's a part of their evolution, it's a part of their remembrance journey, it's a part of the purpose why they're here on earth. Wherever that experience leads them, it's clearly the experience they needed. I know it might be a hard pill to swallow. I know it might not be everybody's ministry or everybody's point of view, but that's just how I feel about it. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, generally, I'm just like, shrug shoulders to the whole situation. And on the other hand, I do believe that we can be more intentional with our sentencing, with our correctional system, and, you know, how we perceive the idea of the repercussions and the consequences of our choices when it comes to other people being harmed, when it comes to all criminal activity, and then when it comes to just crimes against our states, right? Crimes against the country, crimes against the world, crimes in all its ways, as well as even the infractions, you know? So I did look up some information regarding like the purpose of the criminal justice system, and I do want to share some of the words that came up. I didn't go a deep dive. I just did a quick Google search of like the purpose of the criminal justice system, and there's a lot of articles written, a lot of research done. You can definitely go on the Department of Justice website. They have tons of articles on the Department of Justice website where, like, you know, these are a lot of research papers, peer reviewed. You know, if y'all know about research, y'all know about research, okay? So, you know, it's a perspective, I want to say. It is a perspective. But at the end of the day, right, the criminal justice system does have a purpose. Like any other business or organization, everything that exists, even within the government, has a purpose, right? The military has a purpose. Each branch of the military have a specific purpose. And so when we're talking about corrections, when we talk about the criminal justice system as a whole, everything has a purpose. Now, on the Department of Justice website, like I said, there's several articles that come up. I will link them on the website, on the show notes. And it says the goals of corrections are incapacitation, deterrence, rehabilitation, social reintegration, and retribution, with restitution also receiving recent emphasis. Ooh, restitution. Another article said, so what are the 4 functions of the criminal justice system? The criminal justice system refers to a set of government institutions and systems that aim to apprehend, prosecute, punish, and rehabilitate criminal offenders. Now, this is an older article. This was from an older article on the Department of Justice site, and it said the goal of the correctional subsystem is to rehabilitate offenders or to alter their behavior so that they are socially acceptable and law-abiding. The goal of all 3 subsystems is the reduction of crime in a community. That makes perfect sense. We want people to be law-abiding citizens so that we can live in harmony. Understandable. Now, I already mentioned that, listen, rehabilitation was on my mind. It's on my brain. It is something I really do value. I really do believe in, because shit happens. Shit happens. And even in civil, it's in my civil law class, that's what my professor used to always say: shit happens. Shit happens. Shit happens. Especially when it came to torts. Shit happens. And so, like, that's how I feel. I just feel like life happens, you know, and sometimes we get so caught up in it that before we know it, we in some shit that it's not so easy to get out of. It's easy to get into, but not easy to get out of. And so, as I think about these ideas and purposes on a general level, right? Like the idea that the correctional system is about, you know, rehabilitating people to bring them back into society so that they can, you know, be law-abiding citizens. In some instances, it is about punishing. In some instances, it is about restitution. Sometimes it's about, you know, it's about punishment. It's about rehabilitation. It's about restitution. Like, all these things can exist, right? All these things can be a part of the system and the purpose of the system. So I definitely get that. And as I consider that, and as I consider this case specifically, and as I consider even the comments in this case when it relates to the sentencing, I mean, in my humble opinion, when it comes to sentencing, it's very much like, it depends. It depends. That's all I got. Like, it depends. I don't think that there is a one size fit all. Like, if we're thinking about restitution, if we're thinking about rehabilitation, if we're thinking about punishment, for everyone that will look different. You know, if someone's been in jail so much, spent most of their life in jail, punishment, being in jail is probably not so much of a punishment for them, right? Like, they're so used to it, they're okay with it. Being incarcerated and being in prison for some people may very well be a punishment, and to others it might not. It depends on the circumstances. And so being in prison may help rehabilitate some, and it may not. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the person. I really believe that 1, favor ain't fair, and 2, we all get exactly what we need. Though this is a tragic situation, I do believe that everything has a purpose. Even if we can't see it, even if we don't understand it, there is a purpose for everything that happens in this life. I truly, truly, and deeply believe that. And I say that to say that even if someone was to get 10 years, I will understand the reason why. I will believe that there's a purpose for that, right? And even if someone got life, I will understand why. Because it seems that the courts should be considering things when determining someone's sentencing. And though there are clear potential issues with that, right? Because we got biases, we got conditioning, we got programming, our human nurturing, our human nature, right? And our prejudices, the stories we tell ourselves about certain people. All of that, like, when you are considering a whole person and you are the judge and the determiner of the sentencing, that can cloud your judgment, right? That can cloud how you treat people. It can seem like you're treating certain types of people or certain people from certain environments different than others. But I do believe that as we continue to grow as humankind, right, and as we continue to grow in our evolution here on Earth, that we will get more empathetic, therapy-focused, open-minded, conscious individuals in office, right? So not individuals who solely just working off their programming, but those who are considering and being present in the moment. Like, yes, we can consider the past. Yes, we can consider the history, but let's deal with the here and now, right? In this moment, who am I talking to? What are the chances of you reoffending. And consider that. And I think that with time, we're going to have people in office who have another perspective and a different way of approaching the law, a different way of viewing the law, a different way of viewing the correctional system. And so just like everything else in this world that evolves with time, the criminal justice system and the correctional system will be no different. And I pray that like we do get to a place where like we can be mindful of our biases and make decisions that don't necessarily align with our biases and our beliefs and what we've been told about a certain group or a certain environment or a certain place or a certain person, simply because of what we believe their makeup is and not considering them as they present in front of us as their individual being self. Because I can't imagine the system working any other way. How can we say that our correctional system, part of the purpose is rehabilitation if we're not taking into account the person, the whole person? How can we say it's punishment if we're not taking into account the whole person? Punishment looks different for every person, right? What you care about and what you value may not be the same thing I care about and value. You know, because someone could probably be in jail for 2 years and come out on the other side rehabilitated and ready to be a law-abiding citizen, ready to follow the rules as much as possible. You know what I mean? Because how else will the system work? How else will we be able to meet our purpose? Because not every person is stationed the same. And therefore, the parts to meet the goal would look different. Everyone needs something different. And there was another article on a DOJ website that mentioned that there are 3 possible ways a society can cope with crime, including punishing the offender, treating the offender, and preventing crime through manipulation of the factors that produce it. And I think the latter is a big one I feel that needs attention often, right? Like manipulating the factors that produced it. So I'm so curious about what this 22-year-old life looks like, what his world looks like. I was someone who started drinking very young. I started drinking around 15, 16. And so for me, like, that says a lot, you know, about what I was going through, what I was experiencing, and how I was coping. So I'm really curious about, like, what this young man was going through, because I do believe that, I think that's something to take into account. He is 22. I don't know. And again, right, it was like, no, it wasn't intentional. Like, he didn't decide, I'm going to kill somebody and go out and do it. But his actions, it was foreseeable that his actions could result in someone being harmed, dying, property damage. Like, all of this was, it's an obvious consequence of such a choice. Just because you don't think it can happen to you, don't change that it was an obvious consequence. And so even that, I'm just like, I hesitate to call it an accident because I'm just like, was it? And at the same time, I want to call it an accident. Some of y'all don't know me like that yet, but let me tell you something. When I think of a word, I'm like, wait, what is the definition, right? Like, let me get an official definition. So, accident as a noun, okay? An unfortunate incident that happens unexpectedly and unintentionally, typically resulting in damage or injury. And under that, it says a crash involving road or other vehicles, typically one that causes serious damage or injury. Another one says an event that happens by chance or that is without apparent or deliberate cause. Yeah, that's tough. An unfortunate incident that happens unexpectedly and unintentionally. Damn. Because I do see it as an accident, but at the same time, I get many things can be true at once. Many things can be true at once, because in his mind, it probably was unexpected and definitely not intentional. However, it was an obvious consequence. So it's kind of like it was reckless to think that it couldn't be you. It's tough. It's tough. Because there's layers to this. It really, really is. And I don't think that there could be a hard and fast rule. Yes, drinking and driving is preventable, of course. But life is also going to be life. And shit does happen. And people make poor choices all the time. And those poor choices is part of their character development. It's part of them experiencing, and it's part of us getting to know ourselves. Like, our choices does lead to our awakening, does lead to our remembrance, does lead to us developing. So yeah, as much as we might not like it, as much as we might not enjoy that these are some of the things that happen in this world, they do. Car accidents happen. That's why those laws and rules exist. Murder happened. That's why, rules exist. Death happens. It's a part of life. It's actually inevitable, supposedly, right now. So as far as like our bodies go. So yeah, as much as like we don't enjoy this and we all probably think it's preventable, at the same time, it is what makes up our human experience right now. It's not uncommon. It's a well-known thing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying like it is a part of life, a part of our human experience. And I'm a true believer that all of us, each of us is a representative of what is possible, right? Our lives are a reflection of what is possible. It is not the only way to live. It is not the only choice to have, but it is a reflection of one possibility. And so him drinking and driving, right? The result of that is a death, right? So now every other human can know like, hey, that is a possibility. If you go out and drink and drive, like that can be you. That can be your life. That can be somebody's family. That can be, you could be that person. Same thing when we look at police officers, as young kids, and we're like so in awe of them, right? That is one possibility of what's possible for us. Or when kids get excited about fire trucks, or they get excited about the truckers that scoot their horn, right? All of these are showing us what's possible for us. And we don't only have to look at the dense part of life, which is like the killing and the murder and the assaults and all that dense, dark shit that happens, because also good happens in this world. A lot of good happens. I don't know. It felt like I need to add that part in. Listen, y'all. I always gotta see the light in things. It's just who I am. It's what I do. It's who I am and what I do. So yeah, like I just don't think that there can be a hard and fast rule. Drinking and driving is clearly preventable. Life is going to be life. People will make senseless decisions. None of us are immune from it. None of us are immune from life experiences. None of us are immune from this human experience, which consists of sometimes some BS. Sometimes we make silly choices and we win silly prizes. It is what it is. And that is also part of the human experience. We all have the ability to fall short. So should they be punished because the mistake was just so unforgivable? Should we consider how they showed up in life before the incident happened? Can we take into account how they're viewed by the community, what their role was in the community, how they contributed to the world before this incident happened? Because I do think about the amount of times people turn on people when they mess up, or people take away their support from somebody just because they messed up. And like, they start judging the person as a whole, not like, oh, you did this thing, but you are this. And that's always like, I get a little sad thinking about that, because I'm like, yo, this world is harsh. Like, there's very little room for mistakes, and people still love you through it, right? I'm not saying that you have to be okay with it. I'm not saying you got to condone it. I'm not saying that you've got to stick around. I don't know. But my whole thing is like, very often I see where like someone does something and all of a sudden everybody, not everybody, but most people turn on them. And like, they really judge them off of this incident. They could have done so much good in this world, but the minute that they fuck up to a point where like it's highlighted and spotlighted very heavy, it's like they are just exiled. Like, there's no coming back. It's as if like they did the ultimate unforgivable thing, and like they start being seen as not worthy, or they start being seen as like that what they did. It's so interesting. And like I said, at the end of the day, a lot of people want justice. The family, the community, the world, because this is one situation, but it's an issue all over the world. And I don't think there's a hard and fast, this is what it is. Maybe life in prison is the answer. But would we want that for a troubled 20-year-old? Would we want to give life in prison to a troubled 20-year-old? Life in prison due to drinking and driving that resulted in death? I'm really curious. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about a 20-year-old drinking and driving and causing a death? Would you want to give them life in prison? What would be some things you considered if it comes to, hey, they should get life in prison? What do you think? Should it just be automatic? A life for life? And then I would be so curious about what would be the purpose of that. Like, how would that meet the goal? Like, How would giving a 20-year-old life in prison or a 20-year-old the death penalty in this situation, how would it help the individual? How would it help our community as a whole, like collectively? How would that help? What would be the message that we are trying to send? And do we think it will be effective? It's all a lot to process, honestly. And I think at the end of the day, we should go back to why the criminal justice system exists and allow the purpose of it to become a part of the sentencing. And though I think we hear it here and there where, like, you know, the judge will say you need to go to anger management, or they will say you need to go to Alcohol Anonymous and these other programs. But is there enough programs available to really support people, to make it really effective? And does those programs work? Are they effective programs? Do they actually help? Do they have the space necessary? Do they have the resources necessary to really support individuals, complicated individuals, complex cases? Are the individuals who are in these programs trained to really help these complex cases, these complex situations? Is the programs truly effective? Are they mandatory? Is these programs really effective in helping to rehabilitate while giving the person the best possibility of not returning back into the system, or the best possibility to make choices that are in harmony with the safety of everyone involved? As I mentioned earlier, I haven't done research in a while when it comes to the court or criminal justice system, but this is something I care about, which is policies. I am such a big policy person because I'm always like, why does this policy exist? And in its implementation, is it doing what it was meant to do? Does it serve its purpose? Because if not, why is it there? If there's another way to go about it, have we tried that? And so these questions or ideas I have, I'm just curious. I really am just absolutely curious about all of this. And I'm so grateful that this video in the comments caught my attention and really got me thinking, got me curious, and got me activated to be like, wait, what are my thoughts? Why don't I have thoughts? Or why am I shocked? Or why am I so this? Or why, listen, it was a good time to just explore my thoughts and perspective about it all. Because some of the comments, as I read them, seemed as if it was all about punishing the person. But on the other hand, how does that benefit us? How does that benefit us as a community? How does that help? Not just that individual, but how does it help with the goal of getting individuals to follow the law, to get them to be law-abiding people? And what is the message we send through the sentencing? What message are we sending through the sentencing? What is the message? What is the purpose? What are we hoping to grow from this? What are we hoping to create from this? What are we hoping this decision will influence? And I'm not saying whether any of this is right or wrong. I don't think that this is a right or wrong situation. Like I said earlier, I do believe that it all depends. I think that when it comes to how much the sentencing, when it comes to next steps, when it comes to programs, I think at the end of the day, for me, when it comes to sentencing, it all depends. It depends. It depends on so many different factors, in my opinion. So this is not about a right or wrong, whether the 15 years was enough. I still don't have an opinion on that. I think it is what it is. I do feel like he's 22, so that's pretty young. And yes, granted, right, it was a fucking 16-year-old that passed. Oh, yes. Right? What do I say to that? I have nothing to say. There's literally nothing I can say. And so I do care about rehabilitation. I do think that is a major, major thing for me. I think that I realized as I thought about this case how important it is to me, and how much it's like the one thing I remember from undergrad. like it is like loud in my mind, like rehabilitation. And so I wonder how we as a society view rehabilitation as it relates to the correction system. Do we even think about it when we think about sentencing? Do we care? When someone has done harm and we are looking at cases and we're looking at circumstances and we're looking at the sentencing, do we care about the rehabilitation part of it? Or are we just focused on justice, and justice in a sense of punishment? You should be punished for what you did. Here's the thing too for me. I have family members who have been in and out of jail. And I remember one of my cousins got out of jail, and like, I don't know, I was talking to someone. I was like, did blah, blah, blah go back in jail yet? And it caught my attention when I said yet, or however I worded it. But the whole point was like, I had this expectancy that he would be back in jail. And what I thought was interesting about that is like, that is something I believe about the justice system. I believe that when people start going, this is what I believe about the correctional system, especially in my neighborhood where I grew up, how I grew up, and the people that are around me. I feel like once people do time in prison, especially after having a felony, when they come back home, it can be challenging to get acclimated back into general public and to go about everyday life as a law-abiding citizen. And I say that because like I know a lot of people who had a challenging time finding work, right? Their mind wasn't the same. Their mental health wasn't the same, especially if they spent a lot of time in the SHU, right? Like there's so many things about life in prison that can influence and change a person. And so when they come back home and they are part of society, they're not sure what their place is, and they have a hard time getting acclimated back into society, you know. And I wonder, and I feel like there can be some more support with that, right? Like that can be part of the rehabilitation process. But even more than that, like I think it's super important for us as a society, our mindset probably needs to be different in order for us to accept people who have been incarcerated and they return home, right? Will we trust them again? Are we able to work with them again? Will we give them a job? Will we give them an opportunity to prove themselves, to be willing and able to be law-abiding citizens? Like, do they even truly get that opportunity? And that's my curiosity, because like I said, my thought is like, did they return back to jail? Did they return back to prison? Or I've had instances where people just had a challenging time and they decided to self-help and leave life. Like they just decided that it was just too much or too overwhelming, and that like, you know, they just made their choice. And so like being in prison affects everyone differently, and then coming back home and coming back to society can be challenging. And I don't know if we really do our best to support people in that. And I think of that because like our mindsets too, like what do we think of people who have felonies? How do we treat people who have felonies? And so do we truly believe in rehabilitating, or do we believe in the idea that like once you do this thing, that is who you are? And I get that some people don't believe that people change. I don't know. I remember I had a friend ask me that, do you believe people change? And with time and my own experience, I believe that everything we do is still a part of us. Everything is still a part of us. Who I used to be, who I used to express as, is still a part of me. It's just not activated. It's dormant. But I think that about every energy. I feel like we all have the same energy within us. We all have the same possibilities within us. It's just not activated. And so I don't know. And I understand on the other hand, right, we need to protect ourselves. We need to be safe. And if someone has showed us the propensity to do certain things or certain behaviors and certain habits, like why say yes to that, right? When we know that there's a possibility they might do it again, or they have done it before. So the chances of them doing it again, when it does happen, we kind of got to be like, you know, that was a consequence I took. So it is a challenging thing. And I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, wait, you know, there's another side to that. So again, this is another layered situation, but I can't ignore the fact that I do know so many people who have felonies, who have a hard time just being law-abiding citizens, right? Going about making and generating income in a lawful way. So there's also that. And I think a part of that has to do with us prioritizing punishment without really believing in rehabilitation. Do we believe in rehabilitation? Is that something we truly believe in? It can become difficult for people who are released from prison to have to transition back into society and our way of working and our way of being and our way of doing things. Depending on their record and what their crime was too, it may disqualify them from several jobs. So it's kind of like that becomes your identity to the world. That record that label, that sentence, what that sentence say and mean about you become your identity to the rest of the world. A felon, an offender, murderer, right? Those words carry with it. And if you can't create your own job, then a lot of times you're going to have to disclose that. So how do you clean that up? How do you shift that energy, that view of you to those outside of you, to those who you're asking from for a job? How do you change their perspective? How do you get them to give you a chance? How do you get them to give you an opportunity? So what support is out there? And is it enough support for all those who would be eligible? Yeah, it's a lot to consider. And even as I'm telling you, as I think about things and as I think about perspective, more questions come up, more perspective come up. And so I know that this is a super layered conversation, and it's not just a easy, this time is enough time or that time is enough time. Like, there's so much to consider. There's so much to think about. And if I'm thinking about punishment and I'm thinking about rehabilitation, that's even more layers to it. On the other hand, right, when we're talking about sentencing, there was actually another comment that actually was pretty pleased with the verdict. And so Samantha Keene says, why can't there be more sentences like this? I see way too many drunk driving accidents ending in death, and the person gets 18 months or less. This is disgusting. And so I think it goes back to, it can be subjective, right? Like, it can be on a case by case basis. Like, there could be a minimum, maybe the minimum is 18 months, and then like you tack on considering all these other factors. I don't know. It's just something to think about, because, you know, other people think it's disgusting that even 20 years, right? Mind you, he did not get 20 years. He did not get 20 years for the death. He got 15 years for the death. And people thought that that wasn't enough. And so someone here is just like, they actually like the sentencing. And so myself included, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's right or wrong or good enough. But it's a sentencing. He'll have time to think about it, figure it out, and plan his next moves. You know? So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's very challenging. I don't know if there's a right answer. I don't think we need to get to one either. So there we have it. You know? Okay, so this next portion is basically, I want to do some honorary shout outs because your perspectives matter. And so here are some other comments that I saw that I wanted to share, and let's go. Trapper Creek says, I'd like to know how many DWI this guy had before he got the chance to kill this kid. We all know this wasn't his first offense. My condolences to the family for their loss. I'm so sorry that you had to endure this nightmare. I feel that. And that is something that I think is important. I think it is important to consider, like, has this happened before? Have they got a DUI before, right? Because that will go into the chances of them reoffending, or the chances of them continuing with this behavior, or a bigger issue, right? Or addressing a bigger issue. So, yeah. Mad Max had said, I would have loved to have seen the look on his face when he was sober enough to understand what he had done. And I wonder how many weeks/months it took before he came to the reality that he wasn't getting away with a little jail time and a couple of years of probation. I agree. Yeah, no, I want to know. I have so many questions. I am just so curious about what that next day, because I just know what shock does to you. And when you wake up to your reality, like, this actually happened, that wake up is just something, it is an experience that, like, what the fuck? So I am really curious about, like, his perspective of all it is when all was said and done. And he woke up that next day and he was conscious of what was going on. LEC7677 says, why? This is so senseless. A child is dead and another injured because another selfish human being decides they're going to do whatever the F they want and drive while extremely intoxicated. Do you know how much alcohol is too much when driving? One drink is too much. Just don't do it. Get a cab or a ride with a friend. Fuck. My prayers are for the family who now have to bury a child because of this POS. That's real. Because I also feel like that too. As much as like I have like empathy for Jesus, at the same time, like his actions, they can definitely be seen as selfish. You was only thinking about yourself. You probably thought it wouldn't happen to you. You probably thought you were a good driver. You probably thought you were good. You're not thinking about the fact that you might feel okay in one moment, and then the way alcohol hits you 5 minutes down the road, you could be so blacked out. So like the risk you were taking was so high. And I wonder how often he got drunk, right? Does he know what his levels are? Does he know how he gets when he drinks too much, right? Does he have awareness of this version of him? I mean, that's not going to help the situation. It's going to make me even more like, grr. But at the same time, like, I'm just curious about these things. And I agree, like, this is definitely senseless, right? Like, I agree. And I have personally driven before while intoxicated. And this is why I'm saying, like, sometimes you could think you're fine, and then you get in a car and you start driving and you realize you're not okay. That's what happened to me. And it scared the shit out of me. And then I was so grateful I made it home. And then the next day I ended up reading this article about a group of mothers who basically formed this group because they have all lost children to drunk drivers. And since that day, since that experience, I do not drink and drive. Like, I will call a taxi. One of the reasons why I relocated to areas where I didn't need to drive, like I lived in the DMV, so I could take the train. Ubers were at a good price. Then I came back to New York. You know, like I try to live, like if I want to have a drinking life, I try to live places that is conducive for that will support that lifestyle I want to live. And I take into consideration how often would I want to drive. And I mean, I get that everybody don't have that privilege. Everybody's not thinking that far. Everybody's not thinking about that. But because I knew like who I was, what I cared about, what I was doing with my life, those were things I considered. And I know that everybody's not there and everybody cares about different things. But I will say, like, I do think we are definitely responsible for ourselves. And if you know you have a habit of acting a certain way or being a certain way, I think it is your responsibility to handle yourself accordingly. And if you know you have this possibility and you decide to do it anyway, that is definitely on you. That is on you, and that's just that on that. And I mean, it's always on you, but I feel like there's a different level of like, fuck that you chose this kind of energy. Like, yeah, I'm not happy that you're going through this, but what the fuck, what did you think was going to eventually happen? Type energy. There's no doubt that this could have been avoided, right? Like, this could have been avoided. And we know that there is a higher chance you can get in an accident when you are driving under the influence. But like I said earlier, I think a lot of times people just don't think it's going to be them. Maybe we get away with it once or twice and it becomes our norm, right? I know I have been in cars with people under the influence, especially back in my clubbing days. I stayed in the car with somebody that was under the influence. We ain't never called no taxi when I lived in Texas. I don't think we ever took a taxi when I lived in Texas. And we used to go out a lot. Yeah, out there just risking it. And again, right, I was in my 20s at that time. So it's just like choices. And thank God we didn't get in accidents. We didn't get in situations that nobody got arrested. No one lost their career over it. Because we were really risking a lot. But I just think that you just don't think it's going to be you. And again, right, that's selfish energy. Because was we thinking about anybody else on the road? I doubt it. So Eric Flesh says he's going to wake up in the morning saying, thank God it was just a bad dream, until he suddenly realizes it wasn't a dream. But this is his new reality. RIP and prayers to the victim's family. How horrific. Yes, how horrific. Well, friends, that's what I have for you this week. I was really inspired to really just process and consider and think about, you know, my perspective on it, my perspective of sentencing and things like that. I do have a very strong opinion when it comes to the justice system, period, which is one of the reasons why I no longer litigate, or I'm no longer interested in litigating. because of my beliefs surrounding the impact of the system. And so it is interesting that I got this opportunity to have this conversation and to share my perspective of this, because it is important to me and I really do care about it. And at the same time, it frustrates me to think about the impact of the system. And I think it makes sense now to me even more, because I'm just like, rehabilitation is so important to me. I think that punishment is necessary too. However, rehabilitation is just as important to me. And at the same time, I do believe that there are just some beings in this world who are not able to be rehabilitated because of their makeup, because of the way they are designed. And so there is that, you know, I do believe in a case-by-case basis. I do believe every individual come with their own strife. At the same time, we are more alike than we are different. And so we cannot ignore our human nature, our human capacity, and just how we show up in this world and our beingness. So I'm super curious about what your thoughts are about all of this. Please, please, please share with me in the comments below. I thank you all for listening and or watching and just being here with me. I appreciate you all so much. Please continue to tune in. Please continue to leave feedback for me. Thank you for listening in or watching. I truly appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel and podcast. I truly do appreciate you. I love you for being. I appreciate you for being here. And I'm looking forward to continue to share space with you. Thank you to our new subscribers and listeners. I appreciate you deeply. Take care all, and I will catch you in the next video. I love you the most. Be kind to yourself and to those around you. I love you.